So welcome everyone to the latest webinar, SEO My Business. We are transitioning the B2B side of stuff to a brand new agency called the ABM agency, or Advanced Business Metrics Agency. And that's going to be right around the middle of September, but we're kind of starting the co-branding effort right now. With me today is Jason McDaniel, and we're going to talk a little bit about the right channels for account-based marketing. And I think this is going to be kind of a fun topic today. We're doing a less kind of structured webinar format, so bear with us if there's any mistakes or anything kind of, has a technical issue along the way. So let's go ahead and jump into this thing. So ideal channels for account-based marketing. How do you kind of make those determinations? What makes a good channel for account-based marketing? And again, we're going to be sticking with digital marketing, which that's just our expertise. So we're not going to get off on a tangent talking about other, I guess what you would call traditional forms of B2B marketing. So, a couple of things obviously have impacted significantly B2B marketing these days, and that's the pandemic. People are working from home, they're not going to offices. Trade shows are really almost entirely virtual these days, and same thing with any sales calls that B2B marketers or B2B sales teams are engaged in. So that changes things significantly. And I just saw, Jason, I think you may have seen the same piece of information from eMarketer that B2B online marketing is growing for the first time in 2 years. So it had actually started to decline 2 years ago by about 6%. And now through, I guess, the middle of 2020, since the pandemic, we've seen almost 25% growth in B2B digital marketing happen. So what do you think about that? What are your thoughts around, what does that do for, B2B marketers? What does CMO need to take into consideration as far as that's concerned?
So I think it's a really good point, and there's probably a bunch of reasons why the sector itself is growing. I think that every year we push forward and we develop more targeting strategies that are higher focused and able to yield higher return on the actual investment. So to that end, it would make sense that companies that are in that larger enterprise space would be trying to move their marketing dollars into a channel that can, not only drive the results and help push down accounts through their pipeline, but also allow for intelligence when it comes to the conversation between sales and marketing. And we have a couple of points in the future conversation in regards to what we think is an ideal channel for ABM, which is how we approach B2B marketing. So on this list, one, can it be A/B tested? This is just really critical in terms of optimization strategy. If you can't A/B test something, then what really can you do? Gone are the days of just buying a full page advert in like PC world. You need something to be something that can be agile, optimizable, etc. And then secondly, I think what the most important thing is the ability to reach your target audience. So that can be anything as broad as, getting a placement on a retail dive where you suspect that buying committee lives, or it can be a little bit more granular when it comes to some of these channels targeting capabilities. And I'll push it back to you, Vincent, in terms of specific channels that you think are really, really exceptional at targeting that audience.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think, the intent data that is really kind of becoming a staple in B2B marketing makes a huge difference in the kind of channels that you'd want to use in B2B marketing online and specifically account-based marketing. So, and the ability for all of these different channels, with the exception of paid search perhaps, can rely on this intent data so that there's a lot of synergy now between these different channels, from content marketing through programmatic, through lead nurture, the whole entire process. So let's go ahead and jump into the different channels that we feel like are just cornerstone of B2B marketing, and how do they impact the sales funnel in general. So these channels need to deliver content tailored for both your targets and the specific positions within the sales funnel, and so that all starts with the strategy. We talked about strategy before. That was our first webinar. And when you've taken the strategy and then you've created the assets that are geared towards the stages of the funnel and the job titles that you're targeting, from there, really the key is the channels. What channels are we going to use? How do they fit together, and how do they work together, most importantly? And I think that's one of the key challenges that many B2B marketers have these days. So we can start talking about channels. My favorite, of course, is always SEO. I mean, that's just the one that I started my experience in B2B marketing way back when, 16, 17 years ago. And so search has always kind of been the place where I feel the most comfortable. And SEO has a huge place in B2B marketing, and specifically account-based marketing. And it's the one of two, the other being paid search, that I feel like most account-based marketing efforts leave out. Certainly the ABM platforms out there, we talk about demand-based, talk about Terminus, those platforms that are supposedly plug and play, where really all they're offering is the content marketing, maybe, and certainly the programmatic piece of it. They're powered by the intent data, which is great, and the reporting in terms of the organizations or accounts is hugely important. But the key to account-based marketing and B2B marketing these days is going to be getting in front of the buying committee at the very beginning of when they're starting the research. That's key. Like if you try to come in towards that consideration validation stage, you might have a harder time. Certainly it's going to be more expensive, right? And that's one of the key points, I think, where search is going to play a huge role in B2B marketing and ABM specifically, because we know, I think across the board, really what we've seen is that cost per click, when you look at paid search, is so much less expensive at that awareness stage, where it's like, we have an example of what is omni-channel retailing. I mean, the difference between paying for that phrase in paid search and what are the top omni-channel platforms or providers. I mean, heck, I think, Jason, what I'm remembering is like $12 to $15 for the former and maybe $200 to $300 for the latter. Is that what you've seen?
Yeah. There's a huge disparity between some of these hyper-focused terms, and I think what a lot of search marketers miss is that awareness can drive value too. And to put it back to SEO, I think one thing that definitely needs to be stated is that it's driving the highest quality traffic, bar none. Maybe you could say direct is better, but in terms of conversion rate on essentially every single website I've ever looked at, paid search or organic search is the absolute leader. And a lot of people ignore it from an ABM approach because they can't necessarily tie back an account to the actual paid search or the actual organic search query. But nowadays that's not even true, because what you can do is you can use these third-party IP data vendors and set up something inside of Google Analytics that would even show the actual account name that came in via organic. So you're really getting a lot of intent from that query that kind of coincides with that account data. So it's incredibly valuable.
I think that's right there is a real key point, because if you solely try to look at this information in GA, what you're going to see is 95 to 99% of the organic traffic is going to say not provided in terms of keywords. And so having the ability to be able to link your GA and your Search Console accounts together to uncover what these keywords are, the organic traffic is huge. And then being able to, along with that, being able to determine what the account is. So GA by itself isn't going to give you, generally speaking, the organic keywords that lead to the visits to your website. So you still have that kind of missing piece of the puzzle. But when you link those pieces of data together, and they're both free, by the way, GA and Search Console are both Google properties and they're free, you're then able to gain visibility into, you know, what is the keyword that someone used organically to come to my site. So 100% agree. There's still the ability to gain visibility into, you know, what is that account doing over the lifetime that we're targeting them. From beginning, you know, the awareness stage all the way through the evaluation stage, which it could be 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 2 years. We've seen, you know, stuff that takes that long to be able to move all the way through that buying funnel, depending on how big the purchase is and how big the buying committee is. So let's go ahead and move on to the paid search side of stuff. And so again, you know, paid search, SEO function very, very similarly. Great combination together, because there are certain things that you can do with paid search that you just don't have the same control over with regard to organic search. Okay, so organic search, just to be very, very clear for people who don't know SEO the way we know SEO, that you can't pay for organic visibility on Google to Google, right? The sheer action of search engine optimization is to try and influence the results on the search engines, specifically Google, and you can't pay Google for that. There is no pay to play, and there is no, and I've heard so many people say that they believe this, you can go spend $100,000 a day on paid search with Google. You will not get any benefit to your organic ranking by doing that. That is 100% not correct, does not exist. Just want to kind of throw that out there, because I know that there are B2B marketers that will say that and do believe that, and that is absolutely not the case. So paid search gives you, to a great degree, complete control over your visibility on Google in the paid section. So Jason, you've been involved in paid search for what, like a decade now?
Yeah, so I love paid search. It really provides high level traffic, because the root of it all is intent from that search query, right? Yeah. But as you slice it down even further, and Google has added a lot of new tricks recently. One of the ones that I really like is the ability to incorporate first-party data. So you can actually start building audience lists within Google Analytics and export them directly to Google Ads. And you can basically structure them however you want, as long as they can meet an audience threshold. One of the ways that we use it is using, again, that third-party company matching. We can actively add bid adjustments on specific company groups. So if we have, say, a validation group, we can create that audience inside of GA. We can shoot it over to Google Ads, and we can add bid adjustments surrounding that audience. So what we're looking at is hyper-focused targeting on those lower level campaigns, those evaluation level campaigns, towards that evaluation level audience. So it allows you to be very, very laser focused with your ad spend. You're not wasting it on people who aren't prospects. You're completely cutting through the fat.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that there is this kind of perspective in the ABM world that, you know, the only things that matter are programmatic, content marketing, and marketing automation / lead nurture. And I know for a fact there are, you know, there are platforms out there, there are agencies out there, and internal marketing departments that's their sole function, and that's all they focus on. And maybe add in like LinkedIn, you know, you can call it paid social, but you know, it's really just primarily LinkedIn. And they're all incredibly important channels, but leaving out search, you know, combination of SEO and paid search, I think is a huge mistake. Absolutely a huge mistake. So that's another reason why, you know, getting an agency on board to help with this kind of stuff is incredibly important. So we can move on to some of the more traditional, I guess, what you would call top of the funnel, kind of all the way through the evaluation. But content marketing, in our experience and the way we use it, it definitely is most impactful at the awareness stage. It does have impact all the way through the sales funnel, but there isn't a lot in my experience that has the same impact on awareness leads, if you will. And I don't really want to call them leads, but that's how they're referred to in the industry many times. But bringing in those accounts that are at the awareness stage, they're just starting their research on, hey, what's the nature of my problem, and what is this topic related to? And so, there's a lot of different ways to do content marketing. But ultimately, the first thing you have to do is you have to have the assets ready to go. Like, without the assets, you're really going to be going nowhere fast. It's a big part of the strategy that we work on with our clients on the front end, is to determine what do you have available and what are you going to need, and then matching up your content marketing provider to make sure that they do have some kind of a back-end intent data engine, if you will, because otherwise you're just kind of throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall, and you don't know if any of those organizations or accounts are even in market. Would you agree with that, Jason? Is there anything you'd add to that kind of long diatribe?
Well, I just want to say that I really like content marketing because it has a lot of synergy with programmatic due to being able to target essentially the same components, company, job title, industry, that sort of thing. So you can kind of create something of a feedback loop between content marketing and programmatic to nurture like specific accounts as they're engaging with both. So for example, say you have an account that comes in via content marketing, you can immediately push that account over to programmatic. And then determining, or depending on how many impressions or clicks, their interaction with that programmatic ad set, you can push them back to content marketing for lower level assets to be driven. And then from there, push them back to lower level programmatic campaigns. So there's a lot of fun things that you can do with the two of them that I just think is really, really advantageous for your marketing programs.
Yep, totally agree. I mean, they fit super well together. So that's a good, I think, kind of segue into that next channel that most B2B marketers and folks engaged in account-based marketing are very familiar with, which is the programmatic side of stuff. And programmatic is just, a fancy way of saying display advertising for the most part. The difference is, with regard to B2B marketing, that programmatic platforms for B2B marketing give you the ability to target those organizations and those job titles, which that's huge, right? I mean, we assume you already know, the organizations or the demographic of an organization that fits your perfect customer type, and you have a pretty good idea of the job titles that are going to be involved in that purchasing decision. Taking that information and making sure that the display advertising that you're engaged in online is targeted to those people, that's a game changer, right? I mean, that's I think the basis. Would you agree, Jason? The basis of most account-based marketing efforts.
Absolutely. Just the ability to target the organization in and of itself is incredibly valuable, but stacking on that job title element, I mean, and even from there, a lot of these programmatic DSPs, they allow you to incorporate any sort of third-party data. So you can operate on an and/or philosophy. You can say, I want this organization and this job title, while also conjoining that with any sort of intent data. Maybe you're looking at someone who's currently sourcing a marketing company. So that in and of itself allows some really, really granular targeting. But additionally to that, what I think is incredibly valuable with programmatic itself is simply its reporting capabilities. I find it really paints a story in terms of how an account and how a person at that company was targeted. So I could say a director of operations at Home Depot saw 3K impressions of an ad set, and they interacted with it 5 times. So we can use that information to show level of influence over time to both sales and marketing in order to drive different levels of campaign interaction and create new ad sets and push accounts through. It's a really fantastic tool.
Yeah, and I think you really touched on a super important point. is that the data that's available with all of these different channels coming together, can become incredibly hard to synthesize and visualize, which that's the key, I think, to knowing, is your B2B marketing / account-based marketing efforts, are they successful? Is it efficient? What's the return on investment? And that's another, I think, key area of like where folks need help, which is to say, like, hey, I've got all this information coming from search and coming from content, coming from programmatic and coming from social and coming from lead nurture. And how do I make sure that when an account is interacting with all this different stuff, how do I know when they're moving down the funnel based on all that activity, right? So that's huge. And so you got to have a good sense of that to be able to say, which is the last point on this slide, further down the funnel, you can target ads geared specifically to that company itself, right? So you can't do that unless you have that insight. Would you agree? Like, how would you know where they truly are in the funnel if you don't have the ability to visualize this data?
You'd be completely blind. If you don't know who's interacting with the ad set, there's nothing actionable off that. To me, gone are the days of reporting X campaign delivered, Y impressions and clicks. I mean, it's truly irrelevant information. It doesn't help anyone except for the marketing company or the agency trying to explain that they actually spent the money and that the ad spend went somewhere. It delivered these impressions, but
but to whom?
Other than that, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, agreed. So I think it's important to in my mind to specify, hey, all this stuff has got to be based on A, strategy, and B, you have to have insight into the data. Like, if you can't see where that organization came in through paid search at the top of the funnel or content marketing, and then how they interacted with programmatic at the consideration stage, and then they moved maybe back to content marketing at validation or even interacted with organic, then you don't know when they get to evaluation and you can't score that account properly. So being able to target that company at the bottom of the funnel with a specific message to Home Depot, for instance, we'll stick with that because that's who you brought up. You can't really do that if you don't know all the different interaction points and the dates and what they interacted with and all the things that we use for account scoring that is essential in terms of determining stage of the funnel for these accounts, right?
Yeah, and just one thing to add to that, we have some other webinars on our website. We go into our account scoring very, very thoroughly. I will say that the full incorporation is the third-party data, the on-site interaction data, the campaign interaction data, and any sort of CRM sales interaction. So
yep. Check
out some of our other webinars. They're on our website in the webinar section. I think they're pretty good.
Agreed. So paid social, I think LinkedIn has a place in all of this stuff. It absolutely can be beneficial. It's a place where people go with primarily business in mind. It's not Facebook, and we don't advocate. I'll be just happy to say up front, we don't advocate Facebook or Instagram for account-based marketing purposes. It can be useful in B2B marketing from kind of a brand reinforcement, but when you're talking about specifically, I'm trying to target accounts and move them through the sales funnel, and I'm trying to track who that is and what they're doing with my ads, LinkedIn is the one that we focus our attention on. And LinkedIn has a place in this whole thing. Obviously you want the messaging to be in line with your stages of the funnel. You're able to target on LinkedIn in terms of organization. You're able to target in terms of job title. Used to be, in my opinion, going back, maybe 7 years, LinkedIn had some incredible targeting and insight into who was seeing your stuff. And now a lot of that visibility has gone away, been taken out of their reporting. But fortunately, you're still able to see that if they go to your site, right? So if you have your site tagged and set up properly, you can still see that information about the account, right, Jason?
Yeah, and one thing to add, and I was really amazed when I found this out. So LinkedIn's internal reporting is really garbage. But what I discovered is that if you pull their reporting stats from an API provider, then you get a lot more insight than what the dashboard itself actually shows. So that's just a little bit of a hack for anyone who's using LinkedIn. Yeah, pro tip, we'll call it. So yeah, pull that data from the API. It's going to be way more robust. You're going to get way more account information. But yeah, as Vincent said, you really want to start having some analytics on your website that shows any sort of company domain level interaction, and preferably something that can automatically incorporate itself with Google Analytics, just because it's tied to all of your other metrics. Why not use it? And if you're using Adobe Analytics, same thing.
Yep, totally agree. So, from here, we'll get into that standard. It's been in B2B marketing for a while. It's a cornerstone, in my opinion, of account-based marketing. It continues to get better and better and better. I think, like marketing automation these days, you talk about a Pardot or Marketo. You start to talk more about like personalization of the messaging that the individual is seeing from that specific account. So, you get to the point now where it's possible to be able to know who's on your site. You can target them specifically with a message geared towards that organization. For instance, you can incorporate their logo. You can incorporate the name of the organization directly into the content automatically, hence the name marketing automation, right? And then continue to evaluate their progress in your dashboard to see, hey, how much time have they spent on these pages? What did they consume? When did they come back? When did they interact with some of the email messaging that I sent out to them? So that's where the whole lead nurture process kind of comes in, because you can actively nurture that lead through your own marketing automation systems and still be able to track what it is they're doing when they come to your site, and how are you able to impact and move that particular account further down the funnel, which is it's the goal of all this stuff. This is not like, hey, we're spending money so we can say we spent our marketing budget, in 2020. This is all geared towards driving someone that comes in theoretically at the awareness stage all the way down to that evaluation stage when they become an MQL or an SAO, right? That's the goal of account-based marketing and B2B marketing in general. Is we want to provide sales with the most qualified opportunities we possibly can, so that they're not going through this whole process of cold calling and outreach, not knowing if they're talking to the right person, not knowing if the organization's in market for whatever it is they're selling. You're trying to output highly qualified leads that when sales touches them, when they've come through the evaluation stage, who, what, where, and when, right?
Yeah, and just to maybe expand on some of that, which I think, Vincent, that was incredibly thorough. I just want to make a note towards some of the capabilities of the platforms. Most marketing automation platforms are going to have some sort of variant of scoring associated with the contact.
Yeah.
And the advantage of that is it allows your sales team to really weed out all the no matches, all the invalid contacts that aren't really engaging with anything, and truly just focus on the people who are, engaging with the content and going to the website and interacting with specific, pieces of content on the website. Maybe they're submitting forms, requesting demos, etc. But what it really allows is a good look as to who is interacting. So I think that's important to note.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. So that brings us to the end. We could probably go on and on and on talking about these channels. This is what we do every day, right? This is a part of our daily activity for our clients, trying to sort out which channels work the best for any individual client. How do we mix and match everything that we have experience in? I myself have got 17 years of experience in digital marketing across SEO, PPC, social, programmatic, you know, the whole 9 yards. Jason's been in the industry for over 10 years. We've got a lot of people on the team that have very, very targeted, specific experience in terms of paid search or content or email marketing. You know, and we do everything in-house, which I think makes a big, big difference. And why does that matter? Because let's face it, you know, if you need an agency to do each of these individual tasks, how much synergy is there going to be throughout all of it? You know, that's, to me, that's the biggest part. You want an agency that would do things as if it was your own internal marketing department. I think that's key to have the most effective campaign, but also the very best ROI. So I don't know if there's any questions out there. Let me take a look. At a high level, what does the on-ramp look like for a new customer that decided to start an ABM campaign? So that's a good question. You know, it is probably, I'd say, at its best, a 3 to 4 week process, because it all starts with the strategy and taking an accounting of the assets that are available and analysis of the website and the landing pages, and, you know, thoroughly sorting out what the buyer's journey looks like and the job titles that'll be associated with it, and getting feedback from both marketing and sales. I think all these things are super critical on the front end. So best case scenario, probably 3 to 4 weeks. It could go on even longer. It just depends on how much the account or the client already has prepared, what they've been doing. You know, I think a key to us is that, you know, we're agnostic when it comes to dealing with platforms. So in other words, we don't start to work with someone and say, well, you need to change your CRM, or you need to change your marketing automation or your email provider or any of those things. That we work with what our clients have. And I think that helps to probably speed up the process. Jason, would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's also maybe it would depend on what channels they wanted to run. I think that certain channels probably get up a little bit faster. Content marketing and programmatic probably take a little bit longer because you have to source all the different assets. You have to see all the different pieces of content on page that exist. If they don't exist, you have to start the process of content creation. But if you're just trying to run like a paid search campaign, that should be a little bit faster. But in our mind, a true ABM campaign, it encapsulates all of these channels. It's not just paid search. It's not just paid social. It's not just programmatic. Yep.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure. This is the kind of stuff we really, really like to talk about. We'll have another webinar coming up in about 30 days, so the end of September. It'll be on our site. We'll also send out emails to everyone who has attended any of the webinars in the past, including this one. And this will be available on our website and our YouTube channel for anyone to view in the recorded version. So from the team here, formerly SEO My Business, now the ABM Agency or Advanced Business Metrics, we appreciate all your time today and look forward to the next webinar.
Thank you, guys.